Yeah, I think it's a few things. One is, as I mentioned before, I think it's professionalizing
Yeah.
the caregiver role, really highlighting the value, the skill. I think families and those served in particular are starting to understand that. I think if you go a few years back, I think people would, and it's not to say it doesn't still happen now, but especially, if you go back a bit, they would balk at the cost of it because they're like, well, what are they really doing? But I think there's a much greater understanding of there's a really strong value to having a caregiver in the home. And, they have skills, they're treating my family member really well, they have an understanding, it's, very personalized. So I think continuing to, to the extent we can enhance the value of that role in the eyes of the people served, while again creating that career path and providing recognition. So, things like our association, each year we have our national conference in the fall, and we have the recognition for the award for the caregiver of the year. And, I think it's important. I know, others do that, agencies do that. I think it's important to have that recognition element to really highlight the caregivers and the dedication, because it's rewarding work, but it's also hard work, right? And so I think it's important to elevate them in that way for both their own benefit, but also for the industry and the people that they serve for certain. I think the other way we could elevate things is creating national standards. And that's something that we're talking about as an association. How can we approach that? And when I say that, Mike, you've talked about that, like you were just talking about explaining the protocols and everything that you do to make sure that your caregivers are trained, you have the background checks and everything, and that they're going to provide really great quality service. The challenge is that from state to state, that changes. Maybe there's a license, maybe there's not. There are different standards for the license. So how can we create sort of an even playing field and at least a baseline framework that's a common sense one that makes sense? So when you go into the home, you can say, hey, we've met these standards, and this is why you can have trust in us, have trust in the industry. And I think, if we can get that across the entire country and just have that framework, that would do much to really help our cause. And it would be beneficial to the states as well, and certainly to the people served by the industry. So I think those are the elements that are important. And then, the final thing is, encouraging those served to speak out, like the Bradley Coopers and Emma Willis's of the world, who really have grasped upon the value of home care and understand how helpful it's been to their families, because that certainly provides such a different dynamic in terms of whether it's media, legislators, the public, to create an understanding, because, our voice is powerful, but there's no voice more powerful than somebody who's received the care and is so appreciative of it and is able to articulate that.